Hello and welcome to this month's episode of Mapping It Out, the behind the scenes of, well, just everything that we love. Isn't it true? Isn't it just true? I was just thinking, how long has it been? How many hundreds of maps have I created with this amazing software? And we get the opportunity to do it every day. It's wonderful. Anyway, it's lovely to be back. We have had our summer break. And now it is time for us to move forward. And oh boy, let me tell you, we are moving forward. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, we're going to be looking at what is coming up in the battlemap editor and, of course, in Project Deios tonight. And we've got demos, we've got all sorts of wonderful things. We get some behind-the-scenes peek into one of the directors' private role-playing games and just how they use their maps and new assets that have come out as well. Plus, of course, we get to answer all of your questions. Now, the only way that we can do that is if you write the word question in caps in front of your question in the chat, and then I'll be able to see it and I will hand that over to Till, who will then be able to answer it. Now, of course, if you have any further questions, you can always head on over to the Discord server. The link will be in the chat next door to me, and ask your questions there. The team is very, very, very active. Now, with all of that housekeeping out of the way, let's bring in Till. Hello, Till. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. I'm super excited to be back in action, back from the summer break, and ready to show what we've brought with us today.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Overall, how is the team's morale? How is everybody doing?
Well, we're doing fine. Everyone, we went through all the temperatures here in Austria. We went from being cooked alive to being frozen alive in the past couple of days to being flooded and washed away. So yeah, it was. Honestly, it was, I think everybody did a great job over the summer, but it was hard when you have to sit and work while you're melting. So I would say kudos to the team in that instance, and thank you for your hard work, because I felt it, and sometimes it was really hard to focus and concentrate when you're just feeling like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're moving into what, quarter three now of the year, or we're already in quarter three, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. With one quarter left and the end of the year, are things looking positive, generally speaking?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, as always, we have things that we had planned to be ready by today that are just taking a bit longer, not necessarily Deios stuff. Generally speaking, like when we look at our roadmap, there's stuff where we said, okay, this should be finished by now, which isn't. But nothing major where I'm concerned. More or less like, okay, this took a bit longer, or we focused on this instead of that beforehand. So looking at our trajectory, I think I'm quite satisfied with where we're going.
Fantastic. All right, let's delve into some company news then, and let's get an overview of where we are sitting.
There you go. This is the screen I'm looking
Lovely.
for. Okay, so company news, right?
Yes, take us through it.
Exactly. For those of you who have been watching our previous streams, you know what this is. This is our kind of action board. This is what's going on at the moment. If you have joined us as a new viewer, we are looking at 3 different, let's call them major projects that we're working on. The one is B, stands for the battlemap editor. We have already released the AI generate, which is basically just a ChatGPT integration that allows you to send a room. And when I'm saying the room, I mean the text prompt description of what is contained in the room. You can send it to ChatGPT and it generates a room description for you. So if you're someone like me who is running your games directly through your maps in Dungeon Fog, this is super convenient, because if your party explores something, you can just quickly generate a description of the room, and it is quite accurate because we can send the textures, the walls, the doors, where each prop sits, what prop is in that room. We can all put that into a word prompt and send it to ChatGPT. That then returns like a read aloud for you. Very convenient. So that was done, I think, in June or July, and in last week, if I remember correctly, we then released the latest update, which was kind of a summer cleanup collections of the things that we wanted to do, where we said, okay, there's a couple of things that we got feedback from the community, or bugs that we were aware of that we wanted to collect into one thing. And that went live last week. And that is here titled as asset filters, because that is kind of the big thing that happened. So when you're now using the battlemap editor, you can, the way that we search and filter assets got improved, but you have an additional switch now that allows you to toggle to see only those assets that you have currently access to. You know, when you remember back to how our kind of mindset is we want to show you everything, and we want that you're able to use everything, even if you don't have access to it at the moment. But it gets watermarked, and once you have access, the map just updates and removes the watermarks. Now, this concept, I still think this is a good concept, but with the mass amount of assets that are coming in, it is getting flooded and difficult to kind of pick which asset do I want to use. Do I have access, or will I get a watermarked one? So there's a new toggle in there that allows you to just go for the assets that you already have access to, and then place them, which cleans up the asset library quite a bit. Okay, so generally speaking, this is what happened with the battlemap editor. Now, when you look at the getting ready, you might wonder, why is there nothing in there? Because nothing is at the moment.
Has Andy just gone, that's it, I'm done, Clark,
yeah, we're done.
Finished.
Thank you. There's nothing that gets ready for immediate announcement yet. Andy is working since May. Andy has already started working on version 6, but we're still in the early processes there. We're mainly building the framework, making sure that the way that we envision version 6 is backed up by a solid middleware, basically, that we're building around it. And getting ready would tease that it is in the process of somewhere where we can already release it soon, and that's just not happening. So if you're wondering what's happening on the battlemap editor front, the answer is we are working on version 6, and we're pushing version 6 forward. And once we are in a space where I can show, then it's going to get into the getting ready or Outlook section. Because now that we look at the Outlook section, we are also experimenting with new ways to draw rooms. It's probably nothing that I can or want to show today, because it's still very rough and rudimentary. But based on all the learnings that we had from Deios, we actually said there might be a good idea to use some of those techniques in the battlemap editor as well. So we have started with a small prototype and experimenting with it, and maybe next mapping it out, we will be at a place where I can at least show what we're doing there. And who knows, maybe it's closer to getting ready than I anticipate at the moment, but I don't know right now. The other things on the Outlook are the AM bridge update. So AM stands for Asset Manager, which is the A in our chart here, the project at the bottom. And our vision has always been that you can run the Asset Manager in a separate window completely, and it interacts with what you do on the battlemap editor. However, the beta that we released was so clunky to use that we got a lot of complaints, and people said it's just not working, and it caused a lot of confusion. So that we now said, okay, we're going to deactivate it for the time being and just kind of go back to the drawing board, think about the workflows, how can we improve that? And once we have done that, it will come back into the battlemap editor and into the asset manager to then be a solid bridge between those two applications. Right. I'm going to skip over D, which stands for Project Deios, simply because we are going to look at that in the near future of this stream. A stands for, as I said before, the asset manager, and we have released version 1 last week, which improved a lot of workflows and again improved some of the utility of the asset manager, more on the user interaction level than introducing completely new tools in there. The big thing that's coming up is that the asset manager should function as the central hub for managing all available assets, which of course includes Project Deios as well. So the backend, the APIs, all of that is ready. It just needs to be integrated into Deios. And once that is done, you can use the asset manager not only to browse your battlemap assets, but you can also use it to access your world map or city map assets in there as well. And the desktop application will receive everything from the asset manager. So then this application is linked to Project Deios as well. And this is something that we're currently working on. And quite honestly, I think this is something that is getting ready and readier by the day. So I expect it to be released fairly soon.
Awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
So that's so broadly what has been happening over the summer. As you can see, there are 3 projects. We're trying to do something in every regards there. And a lot of things are now coming together, being slowly getting ready for a bigger release.
Fantastic. Just before we move on to looking at the battlemap editor's update specifically, Nicholas Kopp, I will ask you a question. Once we get to that section of the broadcast, I think it's a good question. Right, so we go on to the battlemap editor.
Yeah, let's continue with asset news. So in regards to just assets and what's happening in the asset space, we had a super active summer. In preparation for this stream, I went back and collected all the packs that were released in July and August. June, July, August, I'm not sure. And we have over 20 new packs from Forgotten Adventures, Planet Hoppers, and Chip and Grove, as well as, I think, Tom Carter's, if I'm correct. So there's a lot of asset packs that have been released recently and are now available for everyone who has access to them, either through their Patreon integration or through the marketplace where you can actually purchase those packs.
So many pretty assets.
Yeah. When I saw the Ceramorph, let's call them Xenomorph, because that's actually what I saw when I looked at them. I was like, ooh, I think there are a few assets there that could be really good for my current campaign. Because they're not only, they might be alien, but they're also very much illicit. So
lovely.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
So that's from our artists. From our side, we took the we decided that we want to focus on a specific setting, I would say, and that was castles. So we spent the summer working on several packs specifically built around castles. Now, we're going to see in a minute that this doesn't necessarily have to be castles, but we have released three packs, and that's the General Castle 2024 pack. That is more the walls and battlements and things that you need, very nice textures that you need to create the castle outlines. Then we have the castle courtyard. We're going to see a sample of that in a minute, which is really good to build not only courtyards but baileys as well. And the latest addition was the castle interior. We're not finished with castles yet, because if you think about it, there's more than just those things. So I'm thinking specifically about the castle dungeon that's going to get a pack, and then more the, how would you call them, living areas and cooking areas, dining areas. So there are at least 2 more packs in the pipeline, and so Tony, who's the artist behind those packs, and I are currently in the process of deciding whether or not we want to split them in smaller packs or collect them in a bigger pack that will be released next month. I don't know yet. This is something that we'll decide next week, because then it's going to be either time to release the pack or not, if we want to make it as a bigger one. And
okay,
here are some sample images of those packs, so that you can see how they are used in action. Some of them have already seen them because they were part of our news announcements and they were part of the previous streams. So this is the battlements and the textures and all that stuff that you can use to actually create those. This is the castle bailey and the courtyard, which I think looks really nice with those. It's mainly rooftops and things that you can put there, like the archery range down here, or the fighting arena. So those things that you can put to decorate those outdoor scenes of a castle. And now the latest addition is the castle interior, where we focused on throne room, treasury, and the royal bedrooms, basically. But there's a lot of stuff in there that you can kind of mix and cross with. If you want to have a ballroom, if you want to have smaller tile ovens. How do you call them?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just decorations.
Well, the thing is,
and...
in Austria we have those. It's a very traditional Austrian thing. You have those heating ovens that are decorated with tiles. So porcelain tiles.
Yes.
That then radiate heat in a very good way. And
yes,
I honestly don't know if there is a specific term for that in English. In German, you would say Kachelofen.
Yes. No, we just call them a radiator and make sure that they're as ugly and big and bulky as possible so you can stub your toe on them. Yes, and if they work, that's considered bad form.
Yeah, so that's that. I want to point out we have really cool statues in that pack. So we have that,
I was just looking
warrior
at them.
statue,
Really nice.
the archer statue, and the caster statue. That you can use to create statue galleries or put them outdoors. So I think they work really nicely. And again, a lot of new textures, and a lot of new paths in there. Yeah, but as I said before, you don't necessarily have to use them for castles. And I brought a little treat if you're interested today. And that is a little excursus into my own campaign that I'm running as the office games.
Exactly. So tell us just very briefly, just give us one line about this campaign. What is the campaign?
It's a open world exploration campaign based on the continent of Wildmount from Matthew Mercer. I basically just used that continent as a reference for me to kick off brainstorming. It's intended to be a very long campaign, so we're looking here at years to explore this. And it is I do like to have kind of. I'm not so much a black and white guy when it comes to plots, or more a gray zone guy. Um, so there are different political occasions, difficult political movements that are moving against each other, and the party has to navigate through those and put their own footprint onto the developments there, which means that in terms of how they are actually traversing the world is they are traveling from city to city and are still in the process of actually getting an understanding of what's going on. So the packs that I brought today are from like the first big city they have arrived.
And what a city it is. Let's have a look at that first street map. It's very, very, it's kind of grim.
Yeah.
Was that the intention?
Well, it's the night version of the map because
Sure.
I did two versions of it. I did a day version and a night version, and because I didn't know when they might go off script, go wherever they want to, and I anticipated that they might be sneaking through the city at night. The city has a curfew, so people are not allowed to be outside at night because terrible things happened, and the city guard is on high alert. So I thought they might be ignoring all the cues from me that it's a bad idea to go out at night. So I prepped that. And yes, generally speaking, my campaigns tend to be a bit more grim dark than super happy peppy high fantasy, which doesn't mean that we're laughing and being silly at the table, but I have a bit of a streak there.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So this is as you can see, you might recognize a lot of the castle elements there. And I think it works especially with the floor texture and the roof textures that we're using there. It works really nicely to create something like that from the castle pack. Another map. Yes, sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, so I was going to say, so from the streets they go down into the sewers, I suppose.
Yes,
and
exactly.
So this is your first sewer. Lots of interesting little walkways and little bridges and things.
Yeah,
lovely
so
sense of depth
it's a
here,
big
so
city, so I wanted to have a big sewer system where I tried to. Actually my players didn't really get it. Not a problem, but I had to explain it a bit more. It's like it's several levels to actually reach the base level of the sewers. Right. So you have to, like, that's where you come down.
Yes,
then you
level
have
1, level 2.
Yeah, then you have some kind of guard station mechanics, and then you have to go down actually to be
Level
at
3.
the sewer level. Level 3, exactly.
And then there's another level below that, but that's
Right,
in
exactly.
darkness.
And it goes even further down.
Yeah.
But I mixed two packs here. I mixed the Fisherman's pack because I very much enjoyed the assets from the Fisherman pack, which is those bridges and walkways and water elements that you can see here, with the assets from the castle pack.
Yeah, and there's some sewer bits and bobs in there as
now
well.
here's an interesting side fact. We're using a projector to play, which means I have a projector mounted up on the ceiling, and it's projecting the map onto the table, so my players actually use minis. Over the course of our games, I've started to move away from exploration maps where you always have to shift the map around and explore. I'm now more using scenic maps that are specifically encounter or combat oriented. So the dimensions are actually measured exactly to the projection on the table.
Nice.
That's why we'll always see some kind of border or rim elements that additionally add depth to it. because I don't have to shift the map around. I can just use the existing, and which is also a challenge because I have to think about how to make the map to actually use the idea, like for example, a big vortex swirling in the sewers. How can I put that into the dimensions that I have here? And again, the challenge is kind of manifold here, because at one, you have to think about the combat area, and you have to think about the movement, the available movement. So if the vortex was too small, people would not be able to actually, or it would be too easy to traverse it. But I'm limited by,
if it's too big, it doesn't fit on your table.
So I had to put waterfalls here to say, okay, that's actually there pipes that are draining water in there. Right.
Which is one of the joys of having the restriction, is that you are forced to think outside the box.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So, and then your next two are quite, I think they're very, very well done in terms of depth. We can definitely see 1, 2, 3, 4 levels.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, it's only a part of the map, actually. I think I exported the wrong image. Never mind. It is, there's a wall missing. It is a breakthrough in the sewer wall that actually leads into an old abandoned city part, like an undercity that got buried and is more of archaeological interest. And I tried to convey those old, narrow, if you think, what was it called, Khazad-dûm, where Frodo, where they tried to jump across those collapsing stairwells.
That's right.
While they flee the Balrog. That was kind of the feeling that I wanted to convey in those maps. And again, it's purely done with, I think 90% of the assets you see there are actually from the castle set.
Castle, yeah.
And that's the same with that map, which then kind of, it tries to convey the idea that you're now going even deeper into the undercity. So it's getting more dark, more of those lost pathways, really difficult to traverse, dangerous to go there. And again, purely the castle pack to use it.
Yeah. Lovely. Absolutely wonderful. So, if you are not inspired to go and create your own castle maps, I don't know what will inspire you. I know I've got a pet project that I started the very first moment I got Dungeon Fog. I had a castle that I designed, that a friend of mine designed when he was 16. So this was a long time ago. And I have loved it as a castle design. But it's 5 stories of castle. And the moment I got Dungeon Fog, I tried to make it, which immediately crashed Dungeon Fog because, of course, it's to scale, and I wanted 5 feet to be 5 feet, and to fill it all up and that sort of thing. And this was when Dungeon Fog had the fantasy pack, and I think that was about it. So I need to go back and do this one. It's going to be one of those maps that I print out. It's going to be,
I think, if I
2
remember
meters
correctly,
by 2.
you actually sent it to me and you said, it's crashing, I can't export it. And I gave it to Andy and said, hey, Andy, can you export that map? And he then went and exported it with the, I think that probably was one of the reasons why we did the splitting, that if you have a really big map and you want to export it, it gets split into smaller segments so that
chunks.
Exactly, so that you can still export. I think that castle was the reason for it.
The reason. Well, there we go. It did something right. Brilliant. Okay, so that's Battlemap Editor. I think that's really cool, really exciting stuff to see. What a lot of folks have been waiting for is Project Deios. There are a lot of questions waiting for you.
Yes. Okay.
So let us do the update first. Let's just jump into. I know you've got a slide talking about where we are. Let's go through that, and then I will throw some questions at you.
There you go. Okay, so most of you know that we finished city development around the end of Q1, beginning of Q2. And we said we want to take the time and use all the learnings that we had from the city editor back into the world map editor. So over the summer, but starting in already, I would say somewhere between April and May, we actually started working on doing the work over for world maps. And we are now, and I'm like, this is the part where I'm super excited about this stream today, because we are getting really close to finish those things up. And that's why it's on getting ready. The world map update, the big world map update, is kind of like it's in its last stages of refinement updates. I'm going to show a few examples. I have a demo today, so we can look at it. It's not finished because we still need to polish it, but most of the things that we wanted to do are already done. So there are going to be two separate updates in the near future. The first one is probably going to be next week, which is a small update that kind of sets the stage for what is coming. We're going to put another city pack into it so that you have more city assets. We're going to look at them in a minute. But we also need some, let's call them framework updates, that kind of set the stage for the world map stuff that we're also pushing. And that's going to be the small update next week. And then at an today still unknown date in the near future, there will be the world map update. And I don't know when the world map update will really be, because you are going to see that there are still some things that we need to polish. But I am quite optimistic that it is before you all get tummy aches from Halloween candy.
That's exciting. Okay. Let me throw some questions at you.
Yes,
Nicholas Kopp asks, you said Deios would enter beta stage soon. What is your definition of the beta stage, and where do you think the project will be by the end of the year?
Okay. So beta stage is actually, there are two components missing to go into beta stage. Component number one is the world map update. Because we want to have the technology of the city map editor and the world map editor be at the same level and drawing from the same repositories of technology. And that one is fairly close to being finished. The second one is the asset manager integration, because we don't want to patch new assets kind of hard-coded into Deios with every new update. That simply doesn't make sense. It makes much more sense to actually use our pipeline through the asset manager to release assets. So those two things are the big criterias for when we go into beta, which means that if we're good on track, we have the world map editor, the world map update released before or during October. The asset manager integration should not be too complicated. Most of it on the technological backend side is already prepared. So ideally, it is. I wouldn't jinx and say a smaller task, but it's not such a massive endeavor as the world map world over was. So I am quite confident that those two tasks are done by the end of the year, which means, to answer the second part of the question, that by the end of the year we will actually go into the open beta. And what that means is, from today's perspective, it means you have a full working city map editor, full working world map editor, the asset manager integration, and we're not forced to deprecate super old maps anymore, because the kind of, once everything hits the same stage of technological development, the map consistency is then guaranteed. And did I forget something? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Lensman asks, with the asset manager integration, will Deios users finally be able to use custom uploaded assets in Deios at launch?
At beta launch, yes. At the first integration part, probably no, because the way that we need to convert them into a usable format for Deios, that's a bit of work on the backend side yet. So initially it will be assets that are being published into the asset manager by an artist or by our kind of updates, like our continuous asset pack stuff. They will be converted into the right format and will be brought into Deios. However, I already spoke to Ilya about that, and I said, well, can't we offer the means for the community to upload the right conversion format? And there is a script for that. Like, there is a little Python converter that you can run. So we might bridge that gap between, can I upload stuff and it will get downloaded into Deios? We might bridge that where we hand out a little converter script that you put in the folder, you run, it converts your assets into the right format, and then you put those into the asset manager, and they can then be downloaded into Deios.
Okay. Another question here. When will more generic assets like simple dots, crosses be added to Deios?
We have quite a large pack of symbols from Symbolicon that are waiting to be released. We're holding back on those assets, as well as the final assets that have been created by Kiora through the Kickstarter campaign. We're simply holding them back because we know that the asset manager is getting ready fairly soon, and it is just much easier for us then to upload them to the asset manager and transport them there than releasing them through content patches. So that's the answer to that. There's going to be quite a flood of stuff coming once the asset manager is integrated.
Okay. Mr. Boblike asks, will the assets from the asset manager also be integrated into the world map editor?
If we're talking about battlemap assets, then no. Specifically added assets for Deios, yes. I'm not sure. I guess the question was, will I have access to all assets from the asset manager? Which would include all the battlemap assets. And the answer to that is no, unless you convince me that it makes sense. Because right now, I think it would just make no sense to have a world map, and which is a completely different perspective, and then have battlemap assets that you can put there.
Yeah. Next question. The layers for coloration in the world map editor were removed at some point. Will those return, or will there be an alternative coming up to change the colors of assets?
Yes, there will be an alternative coming up. We have removed them because they were not working the way we wanted them to work. And we also changed the way that again, the asset format that we create. We've worked on the asset format, which meant that this old layer color thing didn't work anymore. However, very similar to the way that the battlemap editor works, we are going to bring that back. And it just sits on the list of things that are going to follow through continuous updates with once the open beta has started.
A very difficult question here is how long do you think we will be in beta stage for the missing features that the Kickstarter said were going to be implemented, things like biomes, political borders, planes, etc.
So the biomes specifically are already on the list of things that we actually want to tackle this year if everything goes as planned. We know that this is going to be the next thing. We always said there are, once we have the world map editor translated into or have finished the work over for the world map editor, all the core features are there, which means that we are freed to actually work on the biomes, because I know the biomes are the top question that we get all the time. People are super excited about them, and I feel terrible to always say yes, we're doing it. Yes, we're doing it, but it hasn't made sense yet to start them if we are
changing the architecture,
yes, and if we have such a long debt on other things that needed to be done, why leave those things undone and start something additional on top of everything? So our excuses to not do the biomes are running out. We are getting really close to starting with it. And I hope that we will have some demos already this year to show.
Lovely, fingers crossed. The next question is another question. It's a suggestion for something to be added, and I would suggest all suggestions are sent through to the Discord server, where your suggestions will be taken in hand. So let us move forward now that we've answered the majority of the questions. And so new assets. We're talking about new assets being added.
Oh yeah, right. Huh.
Yeah.
Exactly, there was something. Yes, so it's a smaller pack compared to the desert pack. But the main reason is because the assets were a bit more complicated to draw with the working together with the artist. They said, okay, I need more details on that. So this, we're calling it, I can't remember how we're calling it, special buildings, I think. This is more in the line of adding landmarks or highlight buildings to your city. So you can see that the top row shows dwarven architecture. We have then, I didn't sort it properly. Like the top row shows dwarven architecture, then we have some colored, more elven architecture, then we have more elven architecture, and then we go back to dwarven architecture at the bottom. So we were trying, and again, this is primarily also a learning curve for us, to find the right art style for city assets and to say, okay, if we want to do dwarven, if we want to do elven, how does that look? How does that feel? I'm very happy with those, which means that we have now the style guides for those two species. And I already know that the artist is super excited about extending the work there and even experiment with a bit of a weirder species in the future.
Cool. Quick question here. Is there some kind of roadmap of what assets to expect from the city map editor in the future? And if there's some perhaps Asian style assets on the list?
Yeah. So the answer to that is no. There is no roadmap.
We're lost. We're just going. We find a road and we go down it. No, it's just being facetious.
Just to give you a bit of a reasoning why is we have what we have is a pool of ideas. Like we're constantly collecting feedback and we're constantly collecting suggestions. What I do not want to do is I do not want to force the artist into kind of like conveyor belt construction work where there is a list of from January to July, there is a list of assets that they have to work off. So what we do on a monthly basis is we come together and we say, okay, here's the pool. what would you like to do? Is there something that attracts you where you think like, this is something I would like to try? And then the artist picks from that, which makes it impossible to plan things because we don't know which pack the artist will pick next. That's, by the way, the same with Tony. And from my experience, that works very nicely because it keeps the artists engaged in the communication, in the development process, and helps them to stay creative instead of forcing ideas onto them and just saying, do that, do that, do that.
Okay, that's fair. And now, let us reveal the world map makeover. Because I think it's really impressive.
Okay, there you go. Okay, I'm super excited about it. So the first thing I'm going to show, we are going to go into a demo and explore it together, but I collected some things as demo screens so that I can walk you through and then it's easier for you in the demo to spot the details and ask questions about them. So this one is just the general broader image of how world maps will look like in the future. And for those of you who are working with world maps already, they might already spot a lot of details, and you will clearly understand why it is important for us to take developments from the city maps over to world maps. Unless there are any questions already, I would say let's go a bit closer and let's just look at the style comparison. Here we can see the old style from the old world maps to the new style of the new improved world maps with a lot of the technology that came from city map development. Specifically, the coastlines, I think are really interesting to look at. Those of you who are part of the journey of developing Project Deios and starting with world maps, you remember that we had a lot of iterations over the coastline style and we were never happy with it. It was always difficult to get a good art style that resembles hand-drawn coastlines. And we were settling with the results that you can see on the old screen here, where we trace the outline with an additional highlight inline and then have kind of computer-generated waves on the outside. However, with the way that we started to rework the city map maker, we realized that we can now use paths to actually trace the coastlines. You can use the tools to actually stick to the coastline and trace paths along them. And by reworking that and working that into the new world map editor, we now have really nice bleed overs for shallow water areas and waves that look much more natural because they're actually hand-drawn. Those are hand-drawn waves that are traced as a path, as a repeatable path pattern around the coastline. So that was a bit of a back and forth to actually get it working in a style that we like, but I am super happy with the result because it instantly looks much more hand-drawn, much more natural than the previous one, which still has a bit of a computerish generation style to it. Right. So that's coastline and waves, which is going to be new. The next one is colors versus textures. If you remember, the world map editor currently does not allow to use textures to actually color the land masses. And one of the first things that we did with the city map editor was we said, okay, let's improve that. Let's actually bring a texture brush into the city map editor. knowing that it will find its way back into the world maps eventually, and that has happened now. So instead of using colors to actually brush over your landmasses and add details to it, you can now add textures, and I think we have a base implementation of about 60 textures that you can use for that. Which again, I think very much improves the way that it looks more natural and more hand-drawn art style. Lighting and shadows, that was a challenge.
Yes.
When we introduced the light system and the shadow system into the city map editor, we instantly fell in love with it. The way that shadows create depth and the way that shadows create a sense of perspective on a map is just amazing. However, a city map actually operates on a different angle and therefore a different perspective to cast shadows. If those shadows would be just drop shadows as they are in the city map editor, it would look terrible. So we actually had to figure out a way, and it's not perfect yet. I think there's a lot of adjustments that we still need to do, but I think we're fairly close to what we want to achieve. That when you place an asset, it drops a shadow, but in a way that fits the general perspective, the isometric view that you have on a world map. And you can see it with the spider, I think you can see quite nicely. And you can see that the mountains actually create, and the trees, they create a very subtle addition to the way that the map is highlighted, which I very much enjoy. So I think this is a really cool new addition.
I agree. We have a question on that, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact. The shadows look great. Will they be on every asset, and can we toggle them on and off?
So at the moment, that's actually just something that we discovered. You can toggle shadows on and off in the city map editor, but this feature did not. It got lost in the transition. So currently you cannot toggle it, which is a problem. Don't worry about it. Once you get your hands on it, it will be toggle. You can toggle it off because it doesn't work with every asset perfectly, especially with small ones like grass.
Another question, will it be possible to draw finer rivers than before?
Yes, so the rivers are something that are being worked on at the moment. I'm going to show that in the demo. They are not to our satisfaction at the moment. The rivers do not work as we want them due to all the changes, so they are currently being worked on. But the rivers will be, I hope at least, will be more enjoyable in the future.
Fantastic. Will there be a fog that can be added?
Yes, there will be. So, what you can see here is a bit of an outlook. This is not something you can already do. This is part of our concept board. Most of it you can already do, but to explain a little bit what you're seeing here. We got approached by a streaming team, YouTubers who are producing a show for Mexico. It's called Lutier de Mundos, and it is currently in production and will be airing, I don't know, by the end of the year, probably earlier. Honestly, I don't know. So Leo, if you're watching, sorry if I'm not super informed on the details. However, they approached us and they said they would like to have Deios maps for their show. And I said, yeah, that would be amazing. I'm going to help you. We're going to use our development builds to actually draw the maps, because that gives us a good testing ground to see if we can actually do a map that is predefined by someone. And we have to follow very strict rules to actually make that map work, like the coastline shapes and the placement of assets. Are we lacking assets? Is there anything missing? So we did that. And to polish it and make it as especially shiny for the stream. We then took it into Photoshop and refined it there. And then we took everything we did in Photoshop back out and said, okay, this looks amazing. How can we make it work in Deios? And this comes especially down to the hand-drawn grid and this kind of conceptual compass rose that is actually being rendered beneath the landmasses. They instantly ramp up the artsy style of the map. So that is something that we're currently working on, and I think, and I'm certain that this is going to be part of the update that will bring the world map update out. However, this is not something that I can show in today's stream.
Speaking of which, it's time for a demo.
It is time for a demo. You are absolutely correct. So yes. To make it happen, I actually have to quickly switch us back to here.
Okay, that's fine. And just a reminder, whilst Till is setting all of that up, you can join the Discord, and hopefully someone will post the link in chat for us. Otherwise, just check out the socials from Dungeon Fog. Don't know why I went to Dungeon Fog. Anyway, you can check them out from Dungeon Fog, and any new little updates and things you can find there. Otherwise, head over to the website and you'll find it all there as well. So if you can't find it, it probably doesn't exist, or you didn't look hard enough. Either way, it's out there somewhere. So some of the other questions that have come through as well, Till, let's go there. And where are we? Will we be able to transition our old maps into the new version, or is there a cutoff? And
no, there is going to be a certain cutoff. Like there are still. I personally, I have maps that are that still operate under, I think, map version 10 and lower. They will not make it over. Maps that are I don't want to say anything wrong. We're going to release an announcement in time that tells you exactly at which map version will be converted over. But it is backwards compatible about 2 or 3 map versions backwards. So that's all I can say for now. But again, the primary idea then is to actually not have major map version transitions afterwards.
That makes sense. Okay, what are you showing us? It looks great.
So this is a demo map that I built for today's stream, and we can now look at all the details. I'm going to start. I don't know where to start. Let's look at. I'm zooming in. Let's look at the coastline here. And again, the interesting part is the way that the coastline actually feels. So we've been using a custom-made brush for that, and handcrafted brush for it, so that the coastline thickness is not always the same and kind of meanders a bit as it goes around, which makes it look much more natural. And then let me just add a landmass here so we can see it. There you go. So we've added a couple of islands, and as you can see, I feel like this really works super nicely, as whenever you add a landmass, it instantly adds that shallow water effect, and it does actually not trace the exact outline, but it takes a kind of smoothed, broader outline to then render the coastal waves around that. So that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight today. I also want to show you that we have updated all the palettes for example, for those pre-made continents. Like let's say I want to add an archipelago. Well, okay.
Sure.
Probably not. Oh, right. Sorry. Haven't been doing that for now. Color palettes. I should actually pick them. Let's do a tropical island here. And as you can see, instead of colors, we're now using the, sorry, I'm flying around here. Instead of colors height maps, we're now using textures to replace the colors with height maps, which means I don't have a lot of space here. Let me see if I can do another one. I'm going through examples here now. Let's do polar. So we're going to create polar here. And as you can see, it automatically uses different textures and blends them into each other to create those kind of ice shelf feelings. And I can combine them. Like I could say that I'm adding now continental land masses to here, and it will try its best to then actually blend them. But again, texture based, which is much more fancy than just pure colors. And you might also notice that alongside with that, we actually got rid of those terrible fragments that you had sometimes with the color map. Let's just make a weird one. What could we do? A dry, yeah. So it's going to get drier and drier as we go up here. And there you can, it's hard to spot, but it is actually, you can see different texture levels here. We're going to try them on a different map if you're interested to see more examples of that. Right. Are there any questions so far?
Yes. Do you plan on adding other weather effects like rainfall, blizzards, or god rays?
Oh, god rays are already in there.
That's right.
They're very subtle at the moment. I can ramp them up for you. Let's make them more yellowish. Intensity, angle. So you already have god rays. I'm not opposed to add more weather effects. I'm not sure how much they make sense on a world map scale.
I can imagine a hurricane cloud system would make sense because
Yes,
hurricanes are quite visually strong. But,
but
rain on a world map
it makes sense as an asset. I'm not sure if it makes sense as computer generated kind of post effect. So here, by the way, I can like increase the quantity of the but as you can see, I mean, at some point, why are you making a world map?
Here we are, players. Here's a map of the clouds.
Exactly.
Another question. This is from Jacob Pierce, and the question is: I recently made a fog account and was wondering if I should wait till the merger between Dungeon Fog, between the battlemap editor and Deios accounts happens before testing out the world editor.
So the merging is planned for the end of the year. We already know that. I had a long meeting about that last week. This week, yesterday. What day do we have? Wednesday. Right, yeah, yesterday. I had a long meeting about that yesterday.
It was a long meeting.
Oh, it was. And we're hoping to finish the merging somewhere between November and December. So it's going to happen this year. So if you want to wait, do that. Otherwise, you can always create a Deios account and test it out already. But if you follow the way the convergence of all our plans, you might realize beta is coming up at the end of the year. The account merging is coming up at the end of the year. So we're trying to bring that all together which means that if you have the patience for it, it might make sense to wait a bit.
There you go. Apparently, I have achieved ascendancy. Apparently, I'm now very echoey all of a sudden. Don't know what changed or happened. Anyway, weird.
I did not change anything. Oh, aha! No, I know this might be due to the fact that I'm running OBS with Discord, with Zoom, with Deios, all along on my computer. And I'm putting your audio signal through OBS, and I've experienced in the past that when you run too many applications at the same time, OBS gets a bit weird. So it might be that you got echoey the moment that I opened the Deus application.
Well, Deus is all about being a deity and a god, and so
exactly.
having an echo makes sense. Anyway,
all right.
Apparently, it's been echoey for the entire session. So there you go. I've just been a god all along. Surprise!
Sorry, I tried to explain it, but I failed. Okay, so another interesting bit is when you place props, and now let's go in. Let's look at the forest, because here you can see. And I'm going to ramp up the shadow No, I'm going to turn down the shadow softness, and I'm going to increase the shadow strength. And I think this is a really good example of what we're doing here and how this works quite nicely with the way that the perspective operates on a world map. Because we're not rendering a drop shadow, and we're not rendering the same thing that we do in the battlemap editor, where we kind of distort the asset to render it on a different plane. I think it looks really good. It works on most assets. Some assets need tweaking, and we're aware of that. Like when we look at the base of the mountain, there might be still improvements there that we can work in. But things like towers, ships, I think it looks really cool on ships. It's a bit too big on ships at the moment. Cities, it gives a really cool feel to those. And since we make the shadows like the intent... Oh, sorry, that's water. I wanted to do shadow softness. Yeah, let's soften them up a bit and reduce the strength a bit. So those slider adjustments, that's something that we want to fine tune. They're all very head heavy. So most effects take place between, let's say, 70 and 100%, and are not properly stretched out between 0 and 100. So that's something that we're working on. But generally speaking, I think they're really cool. I haven't tested yet, to be honest, if that does anything. No, it doesn't. Because you might notice that in addition to the shadows and the god rays and the ambient light, which I actually haven't used yet, that we have introduced the light system back from the city map editor. However, we wanted to do something different. Can I select them? Probably should be able to do that. I'm going to remove some of the lights. They're very subtle. And they're purposefully subtle for us, because we are still tweaking them. We're still trying to get the perfect setting for it. The idea is that you can use those lights to actually create some kind of additional color layers to what you're doing. So I'm going to use something weird like purple for now. And we might recognize that this is actually something that we've seen on Keora maps, because Keora loves to use colors that are not particularly expected on a map, that just works super nicely. And I'm going to tweak around a little bit. So if I add something like that on the mountain range, it actually looks really cool because it adds this subtle color to it. It is probably still too heavy, and I have to readjust it. 20%. Oh, I should probably confirm things. So you can use, you can use those as either to create some kind of colored highlights on areas, or as we see here, you can obviously also use them. Let's reduce the radius a little bit, but let's increase the intensity.
There is a quest here.
Exactly.
You should go here. Either that or everybody in this village is on fire.
And once we have the occlusion back there, you can also toggle whether or not it sits behind or in front of that town. But again, if I turn off the ambient lighting, and I just play around with the
Yeah, it's a great little feature. Chat's very excited about it. Could potentially be a fog of war in reverse if you just turn the map brightness all the way down and you add in lights and reveal things.
Okay, so let's talk about what's next. So we have already seen, and let me just quickly show you. This is the selection of assets that we have, textures that we have. A lot of them come from cities, but we've expanded them to actually fit the color palettes for world map. So you have a bunch of new textures that you can very easily then use and apply.
Now the layering system for this has that changed? Has that how is that now applying?
You still have the set index, so you can use the set index, and you can, I think, yeah, you can. Well, you cannot yet, but it's intended to be here, increase and decrease set indexes for those things. The whole region layering actually needs a complete touch up once we're done with everything, because I think neither brushes nor lights are actually represented in there at the moment. So that is something that we're going to address eventually. But the logs that we have reviewed and the feedback that we've gotten is that this actually is a bit convoluted for people, and almost nobody actually uses it. So this might be something that we take next year and just rework it, make it more a very basic or comfortable way of classic layer system that you work with, instead of this region system that we're currently looking at. Well, it's definitely not something that we're going to address immediately, simply because we still have other things to do, and we're not going to push back biomes anymore.
There's a question here. Will all assets and textures be free with the one-time purchase of Deios?
Yes.
There we go. Nice and simple. All right. What else can we look at? Is there anything else that we need to look at?
Okay, sorry.
Someone in chat's like, there's so much stuff going on.
Just to clarify, yes, when you have the one-time purchase for Deios, it comes with the base pack of all the assets that you can see here and the base pack of all the assets that you can see here. However, new things that will be released will be part of the content subscription. So you can get them if you have a content subscription or you purchase them on the marketplace. But Deios will come with a base setup of assets available that you can then extend through marketplace or content subscription in the future. All right. Sorry, I interrupted.
Perfect. No, it's all good. No, I was just saying, what else do we have to?
Right. Let's look at pathing. We basically, what we did is we took the paths from the world map editor. I think actually that there are still, nope, we cleaned it up. So instead of those computer generated ... paths that you saw before, we now have much nicer hand drawn paths that you can see here. Let me zoom in so you can actually see them. And we filled it up with base paths at the moment, and now we're collecting ideas for more things that you would probably want to put in a path. I can already say we've been experimenting with walls, and they do not work as we hope on that isometric perspective. Because if you have an isometric map and then suddenly a top-down wall that you draw, that's not working. So we need to figure out a way to create isometric walls. And that's just something that is on the list of things that we want to tackle, but nothing that sits on the urgent list at the moment. And then we have rivers. And now I can show you, you already see the rivers here, and they are still the old rivers. So we haven't touched them yet, which means they do not intersect properly with the coastline at the moment. So we know that this is something that we need to address before we can give it to you. And they still follow the old not pathed outlines of it, which makes it kind of a break to the style. Yeah. So rivers haven't been touched yet properly. And this is actually what we're currently working on. But apart from that, I'm not sure if I missed anything. Brushes, labels, we can see labels are still working. The eraser currently, the prop eraser works quite nicely. The texture eraser does not, which means that we either have to put it out of here or make it back that it works, because with the new with the new way to deal with textures, you can actually erase them from here. And now I have erased that center point here. So I'm not sure if we stick to the eraser or if we update the eraser. I don't know yet. And then we have the filters, and I think we've touched them all. Sunlight, this is the God rays, ambient lighting, we can turn that off. Shadows, turning off. We're back to the old no shadow effect here. Eventually, oh, I wanted to show that, right. Let's turn shadows on, but let's put grass down, and then we can see that assets need to have their own shadow or no shadow toggle. Because if I put grass down, it looks okay-ish now for some reason. It didn't look great when I was filling up grass here.
It's a little bit too heavy, isn't it?
Exactly.
But in truth, the grass is just a line. It's not like it's a tree with a coloured section on it, so...
Yeah. The thing is, I feel like it would work better, as part of a biome where you just say this is grassland and we fill those up as part of the biome, and B, if they would just blend with the texture, which
maybe they should just be a texture.
Well, that's we tried that and that looks terrible. So as a biome, yes, because then we can randomize the pattern in there. But if it's a texture, you will at some point, and I mean we're here more in a region map than world map scale. You will see the repeatness of the pattern if it's part of a texture. So that experiment was already tested and abandoned. So we're saying it should be part of biomes. But still, I think it would still work better if it had not, if you could toggle off shadows for specific assets.
Question. Do you plan to add the height concept from the city map editor?
Yes, maybe. However, again, city map is a different perspective. City map is top down. This is isometric. So if you start to add top down heights to it, it might look super weird. It is on our list of experimentation where we say we bring it over and we look at it. But I don't know if it actually makes it, simply because I believe that it will be a break of perspective and it will look weird.
True. All right. Is that it still?
Yeah, I think it is. I don't know.
Brilliant.
Unless the community says, hey, show us something, I'm not sure what else I could show.
I mean, you've shown us a lot. This is. I'm really excited. I just keep remembering back to the day when it was, we'll break 10,000 assets on a map. Do you remember those days?
Yeah.
When those were wonderful days, folks.
Right.
So,
which reminds me, what would be a demo stream if we're not trying to break Deios?
Okay.
I don't know if we can, but let's try.
Haven't we gotten to the point where there's no more breaking happening?
No, we will never reach the point where no breaking is happening. We will just remove incrementally how much you have to torture Deios to make it work. So let's try a glacial. Oh, it's default. I still didn't pick a color palette. I wanted to show on a world map scale how it works. It's not broken. It's just massive. I picked, I think, moon size map. So it's rendering quite some time to actually build that landmass. And we will see if it will happen or not.
It feels pretty broken to me, Till.
It does. I agree.
It's like, let's try and break it. Okay, one click, Till. Done. All right.
Said it. Well, it should. Yeah, probably it is. Yeah. I can't even move my mouse in there anymore. Okay, cool.
Okay,
that was easy.
There we go. Mr. Boblike says, show us how you'd make Tundra work. Well, I think that will be for another stream. Because, well, we broke it. Well, Till broke it anyway. There we go. Folks, that brings us to the end of this month's stream. Now, next month is a little bit up in the air. There's all sorts of things going on. So watch your socials for when the next Mapping It Out will be. There will be announcements, don't worry, as the team desperately works to try and get us to the point where we get that new version. I'm super excited for the new version. I think it's really, 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 really cool to see all those bits and pieces in it. And the maps are just looking gorgeous. I think you will all agree with me as I say a big thank you to the entire team at the Deios Studios, because every time we see stuff, it's always looking better and better and better. Anyway, that's it from us. So remember to check out Discord, check out the website, check out the socials, and you'll get all the info you could possibly ever want. If I didn't answer any of your questions or ask your questions in today's stream, please remember they can and will be addressed on Discord if we missed any. Until then, when we meet again, I suppose, anything from you, Till?
Yeah, just a quick explanation. We have a couple of date conflicts in October, so we don't really know if we can do a stream at the end of October. There's also our anniversary coming up at the start of November. So as you correctly stated already, the next stream is a bit up in the air. The latest we will see each other, if everything goes to shits, is at the end of November in our regular end November stream. But I am fairly certain that we will see each other earlier. I just don't know how to announce it until my calendar is kind of cleaned up a bit. All right? And with that said, happy map making! Oh, too slow, guy.
Goodbye, everybody.